ReefDudes is sponsored by Ecotech Marine and Bulk Reef Supply. Today we're upgrading our battery backup with the all-new WattCycle 314Ah mini battery. What's going on, guys? Devin from ReefDudes. Now, if you remember last year, I had a nice 100Ah battery on my battery backup, and recently WattCycle reached out to me and they asked me if I want to check out their new battery, so it's like, heck yes. And check this thing out. This is 314 amp hours, and this is incredibly small for how much power that is. Now, I'm absolutely blown away with how tiny this is for 300 amp hours. You know, I've seen the 100 amp hour mini battery packs, which are awesome, but now this is 314 amp hours, and it's such a small package. You know, you got a 200 amp BMS, you know, we got Bluetooth in it, we got low temp cutoff, so you know, if you're putting this outside, you know, you're in Canada or somewhere in the winter, you don't have to worry about it damaging the battery. You know, so we got our charging low temperature 23 to 41 Fahrenheit, our discharge low temperature protection -13 to -5 Fahrenheit. So it has all the safety features built in, which I absolutely love. And of course, lithium iron phosphate. So this is gonna last you years and years and years. You know, the battery's probably gonna outlive you or your tank. So I love the fact that you can buy something once and it's gonna go the distance. Now I'm currently debating if I'm gonna put this in my stand and pipe the solar output to here, to the charge controller, or if I just put this outside. Because I'm running my panels outside, there's a bit of a run, there is a bit of a voltage drop. I currently have after the batteries coming in, so I might pop a multimeter and see how much voltage drop I am, but I could always flip that and run the panels at double the voltage and that have less voltage drop. So we'll see. Let's start with screwing on our terminals, and we're gonna pop this baby on the charger and get it topped off before we install it. As well as charging, I just installed the app. That's pretty cool. You can set off so you can turn the discharging, so you can turn your power on and off, and you can allow charging on and off via the controller, which is pretty cool. Just shows it's currently in standby and tells you the temperature of the battery. So that's pretty cool. So I just popped the charger back on it. There you go. Now it says it's charging, and it says about 10 hours until full charge. I'm not sure if this charger ramps up, but we'll let this run for a bit and see where it's at. So we're currently at 13.2 volts. There's 19.9 amps or 263 watts going into it. So super cool. So yeah, we'll let this baby charge and we'll check her back in a bit. So I put the voltmeter on the battery outside and it was 13.36 volts. And I came inside just to check the other end of the run, and we are sitting at 13.32. So it's 0.04 of a volt for the voltage drop over that big run cable on the 12.2, which is perfectly acceptable. So I think we are good to go to get this installed outside. Positive and our negative. So we got one lead coming from the charge controller and the other lead is just from the battery. And we do of course have it fused for safety purposes. And this is the one that runs to the house, to the tank. You always want to make sure you have nice snug connections. Very important with batteries. Now in this case, we're just using a single 314 amp hour battery. There are some cases where you might consider using, you know, multiple batteries and tie them together. There's a lot more things to consider when you do that. Like you want to make sure all of your wire runs and everything are the exact same gauge. You know, if you're linking them together, you make sure all these are identical. So it's all these little considerations, but honestly, it's way easier just to get one giant battery. So instead of, you know, a couple, I used to have, you know, 647 amp hour lead acid batteries, but you only get about half the life of that. So, you know, my 4 batteries with 600 amp hours is only 300 useful life. So and it was huge. So this one single battery does as much as my 4 of my old massive data center deep cycle batteries, and it weighs less than one of them for all that power, which is crazy. So it blows my mind how tiny this is. Yeah, so we are already at 100%. So I am curious now to, I'm just gonna turn on charging. It'll probably turn itself off because it's at 100%. But I'm curious to go pull the power from my MP40s, my MP60s, and see if it shows how much wattage it's drawing. It'd be nice to know that. It'd be cool if it shows it. We'll find out. Now the moment of truth. Let's kill power from our MP60s and our L2. So these are set to run, I believe, at around 60% constant, and I think this is at 25% constant. And I think regular is around, you know, 75 or 80%, and this is about 25% normal, so that everything should be more or less same once the flow kicks in. And Looks like everything is still spinning. So the return pump should take a second to kind of equalize. Looks like all my flow is still going. All right, so checking the app, I can now see it's discharging. I have the two MP60s and the L2 are drawing about around 45 watts and is estimating over 100 hours until full discharge. So that's over 4 days of running my MP60s and my L2 at basically normal. That is pretty cool. So the 4 days is a pretty sweet time. If I want to extend that, I could obviously turn the MP60s down to like 30% or something, and then I'd go way longer. But realistically, you know, most of the time powerage is not going to be multiple days, and if they were, I could, if I knew I had to evacuate because of a fire or something, which is, you know, a legitimately real concern, I could just turn down the battery backup percentage to say, you know, 35%. And I'll get more runtime. So that's pretty awesome. I love that it tells you the estimated runtime and the current withdrawal. Now, this is also hooked up to solar. And one or two of these panels is actually connected to the tank. Two different batteries going on there. These obviously need to clean. But once they're actually in full sun, it will be charging the battery. So realistically, I would actually have much longer runtime because it would be charging it as it's withdrawing it. So we'll see. I'll wait a couple hours until the sun actually hits the panels, and we'll see how much more charge we're getting as it's discharging, because that'll be kind of really cool to see. So yeah, I'm just gonna let it run on battery. Let's simulate a power outage for today, and we'll see how the battery fares once the sun actually hits the panels. Funny, filming that made me realize how dirty the panels were, so I just gave them a quick shot with the hose, got a couple of vines off that are on there just to make sure our solar's actually working properly. I even had a tomato plant that was infiltrating them. I had to trim outside. So it's crazy how tall some of these things are getting. But anyways, I digress. So yeah, so right now we have one full panel hooked up to that battery, and I might swap it to two panels later, but I want to let it run on one for the day and just see how things look. It'll be a pretty cool experiment. And just as a quick overview for those of you who may not seen some of my older videos, I actually ran a wire from the batteries all the way up into the attic, over down the walls through the tank. Super crazy process. But I put these in ages ago, partially just to play with solar and do landscape lighting, and I started adapting it to a tank battery backup later. Now it looks complicated, but it's actually super simple. We got our panels here. They poke out through the wall, come down here, and they go into a charge controller. I got two different systems. So there's the other system that has the 3 panels on it currently, and goes into the breaker panels, and the breaker panels then goes into the charge controllers. So this is an MPPT charge controller. So we have our solar in and our battery out. Super simple. So that comes out to the battery, and then our load, we could either run it through the controller or directly off the battery. I just have it directly off the battery. And yeah, so pretty cool way to do it. Now, if you were to use the load, you use stuff from our like lights, and you can time it and, you know, schedule on and off and different things. But I'm not running this as like a daily load. It's more or less just for battery backup purposes. So super duper simple. I mean, the hardest part was, you know, running this 12-2 wire from here to the tank. And, you know, if you are going to do the DIY route, which is tons of fun, you know, this is basically just like a little mini circuit breaker type of thing. You know, we also have fuses on our load, like all the little things you got to consider for safety. But it's super easy to do, and really fun project to give yourself a wicked battery backup for your tank. And 4 days, assuming I had no solar. With solar, it is going to be longer, and that is freaking awesome. And I bet you if I had 2 panels on it, it might run forever. You know, 1 panel might even be enough to charge it. So we'll have to see how much juice it comes in once the sun actually hits the panel. All right, so it's been about 2 and a bit hours now that she's been running fully on battery backup. And the sun's finally starting to shine, which is nice. So you can see the panels are seeing, you know, full sun now. It's not quite noon, but they're getting a decent amount. And check this out. We are now getting minus 41 watts. So the solar is covering the load of, this also has 106 hours of runtime. So realistically in the summertime, I could probably run this almost indefinitely just off the battery backup for flow. Super duper cool. Now that is freaking awesome. I could probably run the tank almost indefinitely in the summer off of that, at least for flow. So I bumped up the L2 to 100% and the MP60s were at 60%. And they're probably, as long as the sun's shining, you know, it's keeping that battery completely full plus cover the load. You know, obviously winter time it'd be a little bit less, but in summer I bet you it could run for a couple of weeks, to be honest. You know, no sun, just battery, you know, you're getting at least 4 days out of it, which is freaking amazing. Now if you want it simple, don't have solar, pop it in your stand, hook up your flow pumps, and you know, every few months, just pop on a battery tender just to re-top it off. That's another really simple solution if it's, you know, strictly backup emergency only, but I have the solar doing that for me just because I already had it, so why not? Now, a huge shout out to WattCycle, super stoked for this battery. It's super cool and an amazing upgrade for my battery backup. And if you guys want to pick one up, I will have a link in the description. Otherwise, guys, as always, if you enjoyed that like button. If you do, make sure you subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.